On a nameless night, in a stretch of ocean that doesn't appear on any civilian map, a United States Marine warship slips quietly away from the main shipping lanes. They call it a training exercise, but everything on board smells like a secret. Captain Ryan Walker, late 20s, stares at the green sonar screen. He's seen plenty of missions, but the thing that unsettles him the most isn't the enemy, it's the orders that never make it into the official report. Tonight, his mission is logged as standard training, but the depth, the coordinates, and the hardware in the hold tell a very different story. Beneath the thick steel and the growl of engines, the seafloor is a bottomless black. On sonar, a massive shadow appears, then vanishes, like something breathing just under the ship's belly. The file says this region is safe, but the ocean doesn't read human paperwork. It only responds to what we've done to it. On the horizon, blurry behind sheets of rain, a gigantic steel structure rises from the water. A deep-sea drilling rig owned by a military contractor even the media hasn't learned to question yet. Ryan's ship has orders to secure the testing area, but no one on deck knows what they're really protecting. They're only told, "Don't ask." Thousands of meters below, where sunlight has never touched, a deep drilling machine is waking up. Its sound is not a roar, but a long, piercing shriek that cuts through water, through rock, and through bone. Each turn of its drill is a new fracture in the skin of the ocean floor. Each fracture is a warning that humanity pretends not to hear. When the drill bites into rock we were never meant to touch, the ocean shivers. Sonar blips go wild, currents twist like some giant creature turning over in its sleep. On the ship, the numbers on the screens don't have time to become words of warning. Only Ryan feels something he can't quite name, the sense that he's about to lose everything. The explosion is unlike any torpedo. It begins as a tiny white-blue spark, then blossoms into a colossal pressure flower at the bottom of the sea. A pillar of water and compressed gas rockets upward, lifting the thousands of tons of warship like a toy. For a few seconds, every sound is crushed into silence, then slams back all at once like the ocean itself is roaring. Water doesn't knock before it comes in. It shreds metal, devours light, and tears away the last traces of dry air. Ryan feels his body hurled through the corridor like a scrap of wood. His hand catches the arm of a young Marine and then loses it to the cold rush. All the faces he once commanded, in the space of a few heartbeats, turn into pale shadows drifting in the dark. When the ship slips out of sight, there are no more screaming engines, no more voices, only his own heartbeat slowing in his chest. Ryan sinks into a depth with no bottom. Everything he believed in, rank, mission, flag, floats away from him with his last bubbles of air. And then, in the darkness, a blue light appears. Not a human light, the gaze of eyes that do not belong to the surface world. A hand, cold but gentle, touches his cheek, holds his head so it doesn't hang lifeless. A strange face appears in the water, not a monster, not entirely human either. Those eyes study him with the curiosity of a scientist and a flicker of pity she herself doesn't have a name for. In that moment, Ryan Walker dies as far as the surface world is concerned and is born a second time at the bottom of the sea.
You're listening to Midnight Action Stories, thrilling crime tales after dark. If you enjoy these late-night missions, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop your questions or theories in the comments below.
When consciousness returns, Ryan doesn't hear waves, and he doesn't hear engines anymore. He hears his own heartbeat, blending with a deeper rhythm beneath it, like the heartbeat of the ocean itself. He opens his eyes, and instead of a steel ship's ceiling, there is a curved glass dome above him, where dark blue water slides past just inches from his face. He lies on a bed that glows softly, tubes like living vines pressed against his skin. and for a second, he wonders if this is what death looks like at the bottom of the sea. Outside the glass, a city hangs in the water. Not a harbor, not a port, but a forest of living coral towers spiraling upward like frozen waves. Tiny lights drift in the dark, not street lamps, but clusters of bioluminescent organisms breathing in unison. Massive shapes move in the distance, creatures the size of buildings gliding past balconies and bridges as casually as birds flying through a park. Ryan doesn't know if he's in a hospital, a graveyard, or a dream that ran out of oxygen. He only knows one thing for sure. This is no longer the world he belonged to. The door slides open with the hiss of equalizing pressure. The woman who touched his face in the dark now stands framed in the soft blue light. She is not some storybook mermaid. She is an engineer in a form-fitting organic armor that looks grown more than built, with eyes trained more on numbers than on faces. Beside her, assistants with half-human, half-mer traits manipulate panels made of liquid and light, their fingers never quite touching the surface, as if they're conducting an orchestra of water. To them, he is not a patient. He is a variable in an equation they haven't decided how to solve. Her first action is gentle. She doesn't speak to him at first. Instead, she presses a small device, like a glowing shell, against the side of his neck. Warmth rushes down his spine, a prickling heat that feels like being plunged into a different kind of sea. Voices around him, once distorted, like the distant calls of whales, begin to sharpen into syllables he can understand. The language isn't perfect English, more like a careful imitation, a fragile bridge between worlds that have never met, a bridge she can pull away whenever she decides he's dangerous. Hours later, when the painkillers thin out and his thoughts stop slipping, Ryan is taken out of the medical chamber. They don't use iron shackles. They don't need to. 2 Atlantean guards move along each side of him, silent as statues carved from living coral. The corridor they walk through has no walls, only glass, and then water. People of Atlantis pause in their work or in the flowing currents they swim through and watch him pass like he is a strange specimen dredged up from a crack in the ocean floor. In their eyes, he isn't a victim. He is living proof of what the surface world has done. They pass by a sector filled with machinery, the beating heart of the dome above. Here, the ceiling is not flawless. Hairline fractures spread across the glass like a web of pale scars against the deep blue. Pressure readings flicker on hovering displays, streaks of red warning lines crawling upward like digital blood. Ryan tilts his head back and finally understands. This beautiful city he stands inside is really just a balloon, thin and overinflated, floating in a sea of weight that wants to crush it flat, and his kind were the first ones to press the needle in. At the end of the corridor waits a room no bigger than a small cabin. There are no bars, no locks he can see, only thick glass and the ocean on the other side. They place him inside, in the middle of a city that isn't his, under a roof that could shatter. Ryan lays his palm on the cold surface, feeling the faint tremor of water beyond. Outside, Atlantean figures swim past, some walking along coral streets, others drifting upward into dim light and disappearing into a maze of shadows. In that moment, he understands the way they see him, not as a prisoner of war, as evidence, as an object. Elsewhere in the city, Nerida stands before a floating three-dimensional model of the dome. Every fracture is drawn in sharp red lines, a spiderweb of weakness spreading faster than her repair crews can patch. Seismic data curls around her like digital schools of fish, numbers and graphs chasing each other in overlapping streams. In a small containment tank, a fragment of human warship hull rotates slowly, revealing the embossed logo of a military corporation she has only seen mentioned in classified reports. The same energy signature that cracked the ocean floor now glows along that twisted metal. The same signature that woke Lord Kale's anger and the Council's fear. Back in his glass cell, Ryan sits with his elbows on his knees, his forehead resting on his clasped hands, trying to reconstruct the last hours before the blast. The more pieces he fits together, the uglier the picture becomes. The drill, the coordinates no one would explain, the silence around the corporation's name. On the other side of the city, Nerida stares at a sonar display where the human drilling rig appears as a block of black metal hammered into the sea floor. The dome trembles just slightly. Bioluminescent lights flicker in the streets of Atlantis, like a city experiencing its first brownout. Two people, at opposite ends of a secret they share, feel the same truth closing in on them. It is a truth that is cracking the ocean and cracking their faith in the worlds they were born to protect.
No one tells Ryan where he's going. They simply open the door, gesture for him to stand, and flank him in silence as he walks the cold glass corridors. Each footstep echoes against the soft, constant murmur of water outside, as if the entire city is whispering about the fate of the stranger from the surface. At the end of the hallway, a harsh white glow spills outward. It isn't dawn, it's the light of a place that looks half like a court of law and half like an operating table. The council chamber of Atlantis does not resemble any parliament hall on the surface. It is a circular stone arena rising from the seafloor like an ancient monument, with tiered seats looking down into an open space in the center. Above them, in place of a ceiling, is the underside of the ocean itself. Sharks, whales, and schools of fish drift across that living sky like moving clouds of flesh and fin. On one side stands Lord Kale, his dark armor swallowing the light, his eyes as sharp and cold as obsidian. Farther back, in a more modest position, stands Nerida, next to hovering bands of data and diagrams. Not a throne of power, but the quiet station of someone who keeps the city alive with numbers. They place Ryan in the center of the circle, alone on a damp stone platform. There are no written charges read aloud, no sheets of paper rattling in the air. His indictment spills out as three-dimensional images that rotate slowly around him. His own warship torn apart in a surge of white-blue pressure. The deep-sea drilling rig driven into the seafloor like a stake. Seismic crack lines spreading like fractures in bone. No one has to shout that humanity is guilty. The images say it loud enough. Lord Kale does not raise his voice. He doesn't have to. He simply lifts a hand, pointing first at the glowing fracture in the rock, then at the corporate logo stamped into the twisted ship fragment. His voice is low and measured, like stone sliding down a cliff. "This," he says, "is what they do to our home." Some members of the council nod, their eyes bright with fury. Others look down at their hands, as if silently asking themselves what they will become if they answer violence with more violence. When they give Ryan permission to speak, his throat feels as dry as a desert. He could lie, blame an accident, blame the sea, but the memory of those orders, given coldly, without explanation, weighs on his tongue. He admits it. The mission was logged as a training exercise, but the device on board belonged to a private corporation, and his superiors forbade anyone from asking questions. He doesn't know everything. He never did. But he knows enough to understand that this disaster was not born of the ocean. It was born of greed, far above the waves. Nerida steps out of the shadows and pulls a ribbon of light into the center of the chamber. It unfurls into a three-dimensional map of the seafloor around Atlantis, every tremor, every quake, rendered in cold, precise lines. She overlays the seismic pattern with a timeline of the surface drilling tests, and everyone can see it now. Every time the rig spins up, a new crack appears on the dome. Her voice does not shake, but her gaze does not avoid Kale's either. She doesn't say, "Spare him." She only says, Killing one man will not mend these fractures. Using him might show us how to stop them from spreading. Her words break the stone silence like a pebble tossed into still water. The chamber fills with murmurs, like a reef suddenly crowded with fish. There are voices of agreement and voices of outrage. We cannot trust a surface dweller, but we can't pretend the dome isn't breaking apart. In the center of it all, Ryan stands motionless, feeling as if he's perched on a narrow ledge between two abysses. On one side, war, on the other, execution, and he's no longer sure which side is less dark. At last, the oldest voice in the room speaks, aged but not weak. The elder does not grant forgiveness, but neither do they choose blood, not yet. The council postpones its judgment, reclassifying Ryan not as a condemned enemy, but as a strategic information source. They assign him to Nerida's custody, with a warning as clear as a blade. If he betrays them, his blood will not only stain this chamber, it will flow into every crack in the dome. Ryan understands. This is not a second chance. It is the last thin thread before the drop. They take him back to the same glass-walled room as before. No reassuring words, no printed sentence, just water on all sides and bioluminescent lights flickering like unspoken thoughts. Through the glass, he sees Nerida walking along a distant corridor, arms wrapped around a cluster of data tablets. For a brief moment, she stops, turns her head, and their eyes meet. It is not a promise and not an apology. It is the silent recognition of two people standing together on the same crack, both feeling it widen under their feet. Outside the city, the dome of Atlantis glows like a fragile lantern hanging in endless dark. Across its surface, the tiny fractures have become too many to count, like age lines on the face of an exhausted god. Far in the murk, the outline of another steel structure looms closer, another rig, another test, another needle drifting towards the city's throat. On the outer edge of the dome, in a quiet district where no one looks up, the glass makes a sound, a tiny, brittle crack, almost too soft to hear. Then a thin jet of water slices into a coral alley, sharp as a blade. The Atlanteans laughing there fall into sudden silence, their eyes shifting from one another to the ceiling above, where the fracture slowly spreads. Far away in his glass cell, Ryan cannot hear that sound, but he feels it, like a tightening in his chest. So does Nerida. Both of them know, without needing words, that something has just passed the point of no return. The first droplet slides along the length of the crack, grows heavy, and falls into the darkness below.
You're listening to Midnight Action Stories, thrilling crime tales after dark. If you enjoy these late-night missions, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop your questions or theories in the comments below.